Wouldn't it be nice to have a comprehensive snapshot of your year at the end of your bullet journal? Well, welcome to my year in review. This is for 2024. I'm sharing today my method of how I go about filling out this spread and my rationale behind it. The first thing I'm doing is reviewing my word of the year, which was emerge for 2024. We'll come back to this later. But before we go any further, my name is Catherine and welcome back to Focus and Flow. This is a place for bullet journal and planning inspiration. This particular spread is the evolution of a couple of years of me doing these sort of reviews at the end of my journal. I always take a couple of pages and be sure to reserve them at the very end so I can have that space to go back and reflect and take a moment to commemorate the important things and people or whatever that I want to make sure I record and remember for the year. This is something of a memory keeping device, as noted here by the top memories. This is sort of like the headlines, I would say. It's a place for me to commemorate and take note of those important items or people or things that sometimes only have significance even just in my own mind, but when I look back at the year, these things definitely would stand out. A good way to jog your memory to prepare for this is to go back and review your photos or go back in your bullet journal itself to see what have you taken note of, what kinds of events happened, what places did you go, and what people were you with. That's really going to inspire you to complete this type of memory keeping. Now, going back to that word of the year, which for me was emerge. I can talk about this another time about picking the word of the year and what that means. I always find that this is a nice way to kind of bookend at the end of the year because that word ends up sometimes having a different significance. Maybe it has a nuance that it didn't have before. And just a word of wisdom here when you pick out that word of the year. Be aware of all of the possible meanings and implications that that word might have because sometimes it'll surprise you. For me, my word emerge, I loved it. It was a great word. 10 out of 10. Very happy with it. Now, this next section is one of my favorites, hence its label as favorites. This is denoting my top items of the year. It doesn't have to be very strict. It doesn't really have to be any kind of criteria, just whatever you want to commemorate, whatever kind of things that you're into. For me, I like to note the kind of music that I was enjoying the most. I like to take note of the book that I probably enjoyed the most, the movie, the podcast, and so forth. Sometimes it can be kind of hard, but it's a good kind of hard. It's kind of a fun challenge to look back and say, hey, what song really was on repeat for me this year? And maybe that has some significance, maybe it doesn't, but it's just kind of interesting, right? I also like to take note of places that I've traveled, which are what I would call favorites, as well as clothing that maybe I obtained or that I wore that really meant something to me this year. I also like to note a food that meant something. Usually that means a food that is newer to me that I encountered. And a moment. Is there a top moment that you can think of for the year which maybe was very happy for you or very heartening? Take note of that here. Ultimately, this is a form of self-care and it's a way of reflecting and almost in a way indulging yourself to look back and find meaning and find purpose maybe in the last year. So the next questions are going to be a little bit deeper and not so much fun, I would say, but this is really kind of where you get to the heart of this review, which is, I would say, the most helpful when you're revisiting it in the future, that you come back and see what was going on a deeper level in your mind and in your world during that year. So the first question that I have is, what did I learn? I take this as an opportunity to note things or skills that I literally learned, such as, for me, I began speaking Hindi this year. I also added some tools to my toolkit for energy and body work. Those were definitely things that I would say I learned this year. But this is also a place to make note of any larger concepts or ideas that you have come in contact with, or that you otherwise gleaned from your experiences or your personal studies. It is just a good place to have as a marker of different things that you may have encountered, and even maybe things that you have learned about yourself. The next section I have here is, what would I tell myself on January 1st of 2024? This is a moment I can take to go back and revisit myself during the first day of the year. What kinds of things, just like I noted a second ago, have I learned? What kinds of things would I like to have known at that time? This you can take in a variety of different directions, to be a bit more philosophical and deeper, or it can be things that otherwise you would like to have seen coming, some kind of big crazy headline that happened in your life. It's just a moment to kind of revisit your past self. The next question here is, what am I proud of? This is your opportunity to brag a little bit and notice the things that you have done good on in the last year. So moments that you may have been courageous, or chances that you may have taken, or things that you exceeded and excelled at. This is your opportunity to take stock of it. This might even tie into your word of the year, or something that you worked on with your level 10 life or your larger goals. So definitely take a moment to look back throughout the year and review that goals page, review that level 10 life, if that's something that you're working with, so you can really take a proper view and congratulate yourself on a job well done in those areas. Next up, we have, what would I change? This is another chance that you have to go back a little bit deeper. Is there a particular moment that maybe you wish you had done differently? Is there a way that you would have modified your attitude or your thoughts on a particular subject? I didn't leave a whole lot of space for this one because I just wanted it to be really sort of a stream of consciousness, knee-jerk reaction, so I could just quickly note down what I wanted to say there. In my last section here, I have 4 different boxes. Those are noted as wins, losses, travels, and next. So in the first box on the left, I am calling it wins. So these are things that went well, or things that I otherwise want to remember that I succeeded at. It's really just at a glance kind of thing to take note of things that went well during the year. On the right side, I have losses. These are things that maybe weren't so great, but still deserve to be commemorated. They still have meaning. So for me, this is losing a couple of key figures in my life, family, and so forth, that passed away during the course of the year. I also have travels up here at the top, so I'm noting the different places that I went to on vacation, holiday, places that I visited and want to definitely remember. This is a very fun part, but not everyone does travel a lot, so if there's something specific as far as maybe something that you are studying or learning, if there's something that you're working towards, if there is a personal health goal. These are all different ideas that you might want to instead put in a box like this. Then at the bottom here, I have next. So this is just a way for me to identify what I'm looking forward to in the coming year. And the future, when I'm looking back at this spread, I may not be sitting there with my 2025 journal at the same time. So it's a way for me to understand what was in my mind, where I was looking towards, and what types of things I was thinking about doing at the end of this year. So that is my year in review. This is a wonderful thing to gift yourself, and it's really fun to go back and do, and it's also fun to review in the future. I do recommend trying something like this. Again, you have to customize it for what works for you, but do let me know in the comments if there is something else you would add to a spread like this, or if you have done a year in review, what kinds of things have you included on that maybe I don't have here in mine. It would be cool to see. So thank you for joining. I look forward to sharing more with you, and do subscribe so that you can be notified whenever I upload a new video. Here we are with that word, emerge. Such a nice word. It was a good year. Okay, see you next time.